They said, "The body has expired. What would you like us to do with it?" Hi Dawnies, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new to my channel, I ask you to go ahead and subscribe because you're helping this disabled by watching my fables so I don't have to beg you. Now, I've been sporadic in uploading because I've been going through some things. We'll talk about that another time when I feel like sharing that. This video was actually supposed to go up early in April, but just bear with me. I'm hoping me sharing this story will help others who may have dealt with the same situation. So let's get into the story. In late 2014, I was living in Texas, and as you know, my mom was in California. And I received a call that my mom was in the hospital because she had pneumonia. But at that time, she was able to call me on the phone and tell me all what was going on. Now, they discharged her. I don't think she was in the hospital long enough for her to get well. They discharged her at night, even though the discharge papers said for her not to be out in the cold at night. Like I said, this was late January, even though it was California, it was still cold at night. But in LA, after the sun goes down, it gets really cold. I don't care what people try to tell you about sunny Southern California, it gets cold. So my mom was in the hospital, my mom was out of the hospital for like maybe 2 weeks. Then I get a call from one of her friends that she's back in the hospital because she had a heart attack. I'm not sure if it was one of my mom's friends or if it was my friend. But anyway, I got a call that she was back in the hospital. She suffered from a heart attack. And that was at the same time, that's the same time with the mommy and the hookup. If you don't know anything about that story, the card is right here. You have to check out that story because it's hilarious. Your mother, no matter what's going on with their health, they will be trying to take care of you even from their sick bed. So you just have to check out that story to know what I'm talking about. That's all the foreshadowing I'm giving. Anyway, so she was in the hospital with a heart attack. I flew from Texas to California to check on her, and she was being transferred from one hospital to the main hospital. And the next day I went to see about her, and her friend was in there too. And my mom was like coughing up blood. And I'm like, why is she coughing up blood? This is what I'm asking the nurses and the physician and all this. And they kept acting like it was no big deal. And I'm like, I think that's a big deal. Why is my mother coughing up blood? And then my mom, being the mom she is, always protecting her child, was telling me to be quiet. But I'm like, Mother, you always said I'm your mother, so you need to be quiet so I can find out, why are you coughing up blood? You shouldn't be coughing up blood if you just had pneumonia 2 weeks ago and now you have a heart attack. There is a reason why you're coughing up blood, and I need them to look at it. But she wouldn't let me be my feisty self to find out more details. She was saying she could handle it. And I'm like, okay, Mom. If you say you can handle it, I'm gonna let it go, even though I think something's wrong with this picture. So I stayed with my mom for a few more days, but she was insistent that I go back to Texas because So she was insisting that I go back to Texas because I just started a new job, and she didn't want me to lose my job. So I did go back to Texas, and I was at work, and then I get another phone call that she's back in the hospital with shortness of breath. This time she's at USC Hospital, which is an educational hospital. So they were doing everything in their power to keep her alive. With that said, I flew back to LA to see how she was doing. When I first got on the floor, the nurse was like, she's sedated, she might not wake up. And I was like, oh, okay. So I go in the room. Let me tell you about the power of love. My mommy opened her eyes and mouthed, I love you. Even though she may have been sedated, she felt the presence of her DNA coming through those doors. And she held my hand, and she told me she loved me. And I don't care what they say, sedation cannot knock out a mother's love, no matter what they thought. That's all I have to say about that. So like I said, my mother was in the USC hospital for a while, and they tried to do everything to keep her alive. And they even showed me, because of her COPD, her lungs were so enlarged, it was pressing on her heart, which was causing her AFib, which is irregular heartbeat. I don't know how to say the long word, so everybody knows it's AFib, so we just gonna go with AFib. And that's why she keeps having heart attacks and she keeps basically dying. But my mom was insistent on staying on this planet Earth. I don't know why. I'd rather go to heaven. This earth can have it. But she was insistent to stay alive as long as possible. And she loved the fact that USC was trying to do everything in their power to help her. And the fact that my grandfather had wrote the proposal for the hospital. So she was just in la la land that, you know, they were trying to help her, even though the main hospital that she's assigned to kept trying to get her. And she was like, I'm not going. But at one point, the doctors were like, okay, they were asking my mom in front of me and my cousin and a friend of my mom and somebody else. It was basically a whole bunch of witnesses around, asking my mom if she would like me to make decisions on her behalf. Now, my mother, for some reason, thought that wasn't a good idea, and she told them no. I don't know why she told them no, but then gonna whisper to me, keep me alive as long as possible. Well, you should let me make decisions if they, woman. Now, because of my mother's shortness of breath, oh, and I also forgot to say that she had kidney disease. She was only using 30% of her kidneys, and they looked at her kidneys and everything, and they were saying she wouldn't need dialysis. So whatever was going on with her lungs was just messing up everything else. So with the shortness of breath, they were saying that they would need to give her a tracheotomy. And so, you know, the tracheotomy is to put the tubes down your throat and usually sound like blah, 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 blah. And maybe this should be a smoker's PSA video. Hey y'all, whatever you smoking, weed, crack, cigarettes, jewels, evaporators, whatever it is, it doesn't belong in your body and your body will react. Okay, enough with the PSA. Because they were saying that she was getting the tracheotomy, that she's going to need 24-hour care and she's going to need somebody to look after her on a daily basis. So I was like, okay, let me fly back to Texas and pack up my belongings, put it in storage, and come back to LA. And I also thought I was going to have the opportunity to ship my stuff back to LA, but that's a whole nother story. But since I was going to be gone for like 5 or 7 days, I did set up a schedule where somebody would have to check on my mother every day. I had all her friends on schedule, all the family members on schedule, all my friends on schedule. Y'all need to go to the hospital every day and make sure she's okay. So that was cool. They did, and I called every day to make sure somebody did check on her. Because what we're not going to have is have her lose her life while I'm not there. So I get back from Texas, I come to see her, and my mom, now she has the tracheotomy in her, and I'm thinking she's going to sound like the way I just did that example earlier. You know how those tobacco commercials are, right? I thought she was going to sound like that, but she sounded like her regular self. She just talking up a storm, being her lively self, laughing and talking, telling jokes like she normally does, telling me, you know, that they put green dye in her food to see how she's able to eat with her throat and how she's digesting and all this stuff. And she's just telling me all what's going on and how she's having a wonderful time in the hospital and her roommate. I can't remember what she said about her roommate, but it wasn't nice. But anyway, she was being her regular self. And then we discussed, you know, at first we discussed looking for another place to live, but she was saying I could live with her, get my name on the lease, and I could just stay with her because she's only paying $230 a month. Yes, in LA, she was only paying $230 a month. So before I left, she prayed because she was a prayer warrior. She would, at a drop of a dime, she would just pray. So I left, and then the next day, I think at this time it was like March 14th, 2014, March 14, 2014. And for some reason, that morning, I was extremely exhausted. I was like, why can't I wake up? And I was also freezing cold, so I like wrapped a whole bunch of blankets around me, and I just was trying to stay warm. You know, a similar thing happened with my grandpa, and I'll say what that means in just a minute. So I finally wake up about 11 a.m. and I see my voicemail light come on. And so I check the message. Now tell me. No, I checked the message and then I called the facility because I forgot to say she was now in a rehabilitation center. When they did the tracheotomy, they moved her to a rehabilitation center with all the food and the learning how to talk and all that again. So like I said, I called back to the hospital. Tell me why. They said, the body has expired. What would you like us to do with it? So I was like, okay. I know you guys deal with death on a daily basis, but what I am going to need you to do is robot in some compassion. My mother just passed away, and this is how you respond to me? What do you mean the body's expired, and what do you want? What do I want to do with it? Who? What? I'm trying not to get angry all over again because it pisses me off every time. That's how I have to hear about my mother. The body has expired. What do you want to do with it? That's just rude. So I text my cousin and my friend that my mom has passed and drove as quickly as possible to the rehabilitation center, that they were doing their rounds that morning. And she was lively and talking and just bubbly as she normally is, right? And they came back and saw that she was non-responsive, and they had to call 911. So you're telling me no nurse on staff knows how to resuscitate people? Is this why people die? My cousin went to go see if my mom was really gone, because at this time I'm just numb and mad. Like, I couldn't cry at the moment. I was just like, okay, these people just called me and asked me what do I want to do with the body, instead of saying, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. So I was in the office with the office administrator, and I was explaining to them that my mom always said to donate her body to science and throw her a party. And my cousin and my friend at the time was saying, yeah, that's what she always said. Unfortunately, my mother wasn't registered to one of those facilities that take the body for a donation. So I think this was like a 2-hour ordeal. We're trying to figure out, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with my mom's body and all this stuff. And I called her pastor, and the pastor was like, well, can't the city morgue hold the body until we can figure out what to do with it? And so I'm talking to the pastor, and then all this emotions and stuff. And so either my cousin or my friend came out and said, the administrator wants to talk to you. So I go back to the administrator, and he's like, I found a facility that would take your mom's body. You guys know I'm pausing because I'm trying not to tear up, but I have to share this story because really. So a facility did take my mom's body and donate it to science. And I'm not sure what all they did with the body, but they took her free of charge. That's from the glory of God. I didn't have to pay anything. She was cremated and the remains were sent back to me. And at one time I was looking like, you know how people have lockets to put some of the ashes in and wear it around your neck. I was looking at this one site. I didn't know this was such a big ordeal that you could get a watch, a necklace, earrings, headband, a clock. They got all kind of things for people who like to keep ashes rather than just an urn. So just so you guys know, if that's your thing, go for it. Now, the part that really gets me, I tried to call, what's that famous lawyer's, oh goodness, what's that famous lawyer? What's the name of that lawyer that did OJ's case? Cotton, Johnny Cotton. Okay. So like I was saying, I called Johnny Cochran's office, think they can help me, you know, with all I was saying, the pneumonia, the heart attack, the shortness of breath, the tracheotomy, these people that didn't know how to resuscitate her. And they told me I didn't have a case. And I'm like, what do you mean I don't have a case? I should have a case. This is crazy. So this was around the same time that Joan Rivers had died, and they were saying who her lawyer was, even though that was in New York, right? So I called that lawyer and asked if they knew a lawyer in California that could take my case. The lawyer in New York said, well, California has a cap, and that's why they're not taking your case. They only, I don't know what kind of cases they take, but they wouldn't take my case. He did give me a lawyer, name to a lawyer in San Francisco, and I kept trying to call, but she never called me back. So I didn't get to sue anybody for what I consider wrongful death. Well, Dawnies, let me know if you've been in a similar situation, and how would or have you handled this situation, and how has your grief process worked? I mean, yeah, this is 5 years ago, but it still hurts, especially the way she died. It wasn't good. And I one day will share more why she, you know, had all those health issues anyway. But as I always say, Dawnies, remember to toast to life because it makes for a great story. Please like, subscribe, and share, and don't forget the notification bell. And I'll see you next week. Bye.